Right on, writers. Welcome to the Books by Adrian author platform. I am your host, Adrian Santiago, and this is a very, very special occasion as we are celebrating the launch of David Hopkins' new novel, The Dryad's Crown. I am incredibly excited. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Now, the music is meant to give you the feel of the book, but today is going to be a very excited event, and we're going to get into the nitty gritty of all these things here together. So, if you are a returning audience member, thank you very much for coming back. Welcome back. If you are a first time visitor to my channel, welcome. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube things that you know that I need you to do in order to help the channel. Do it. And everybody will be better for it. There's already people in the chat. RC, what's up, bro? Thank you for coming so early. Jennifer, welcome. Please come in. Have yourself a seat. Hello, Felicia. I've been seeing more and more of you around my channel, so I am very happy to see you here. Summer, I believe you are new to my channel. I don't recognize your avatar here. Welcome. I'm very happy to have you here. I'm sorry for my orange face. There's a window here, and orange light is coming through, and I tried, but I can't do anything about it. So, hooray for terrible lighting. Okay, here we go. Let's get the man of the hour out here, and let's talk writing. Everybody, please welcome David Hopkins.
Hey, Adrian, it's good to be
What's
back.
up, brother? How are you? Welcome.
I am doing so. You used the song.
I'm using it again right now.
I get a little choked up. This is Ensum Loch, which is a song played on the Book of Horn by Cecil Morkan Gillord. This is the song that will be starting off the audiobook.
Beautiful. And we're going to be talking about the audiobook with your audiobook narrator later in this episode. So I'm very, very excited to talk about that. So this is the theme song. So
Yes. Oh, and
beautiful.
Daniel DeSena, Penslinger. I just saw him in the chat. Daniel, who's the illustrator. And then, of course, my friend Summer. Oh, gosh. We got a great group here. This is awesome.
Yeah, they're just starting to roll through. And since you are rolling through, let me throw this out here. Everybody, start using this in the chat, because 3 times today I'm going to be randomly drawing a winner who has used this hashtag in my chat. And you will win, first, an ebook copy of The Dryad's Crown. The second winner will win a paperback copy of The Dryad's Crown, and the third will win an audiobook copy of The Dryad's Crown. And we're very, very excited to be giving away some free copies to you guys on launch day. So welcome, use the hashtag, and use it frequently and often. It will only increase your chances of winning. David.
Yes.
Please tell the people at home who you are, where you're from, and what you're currently working on.
Yeah, my name is David Hopkins. I am an author living in the Dallas-Fort Worth region of Texas. And I finished and released The Dryad's Crown, which came out today. And what I'm working on right now is, book 2. I'm a good chunk of the way into the second book, War of the Hounds, which takes one of the minor characters from the first book and tells her story in a little bit more detail.
Beautiful. Well, in regards to that story, please pitch us The Dryad's Crown. What is it all about? What can people expect to find in the pages?
Yeah, The Dryad's Crown is a story about Silbury, and it is a story about a wood nymph who is taken from the forest that she is born in, and through a series of just strange happenstance, or possibly fate, she ends up in the city being raised by a cruel guildmaster and she grows up completely unaware of her past, of who she is, of what she can do. And the story is one of self-discovery, but it's also one that, discovery comes with a calling, and she finds out a little bit more about what her life is meant to be about. And yeah, it's that journey. It's one fascinating life told in a rather chunky novel here, The Dryad's Crown.
Well, you had me at Wood Nymph. I'm in. Let's do it. Summer asked how long it took you to write. 2 weeks. Yeah.
More like 2 years.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I feel like I would have written this one a little bit faster, but I originally released it as a series of ebook novellas just to confuse everyone. And that whole process kind of slowed me down a bit, but slowing down actually meant that I could take a little bit more time and attention. And it also meant that I got to work with my editor, and we could kind of work it out. And also, it gave our amazing illustrator, Daniel Irving DeSena, a chance to get all of that amazing artwork. So it took a while, but I feel like it was time well spent.
And so there is artwork inside the book. It's not just the cover.
Yeah, we have and this is one of the things when people first open the book, they are most surprised about. Every time I hear people comment that when they thought that there were illustrations, they didn't know there would be so many. And I mean, yeah, this is 12 illustrations. I mean, just absolutely.
Whoa, hold on. Let me give you a full screen here.
Okay, there you go. We'll get up right to the camera there.
Yeah. Oh man, the detail.
Oh yeah. Well, and that was the thing. I chose this paper. It's groundwood paper because I knew that it would look so good for those illustrations. It just soaks up that ink in just the right way. And yeah, it looks beautiful.
It has a real like old timey, like almost scroll like kind of vibe to it. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. And as I said, each one of the sections of the book has an illustration with it. And yeah, Daniel just knocked it out of the park. There's just no other way to say that.
That is fantastic. Apparently the map is pretty awesome too.
Yeah. The map is by Francesca Bolrold. We have kind of an international group here because Daniel is from the Philippines and Francesca is from Italy. She did the map. And then the person who did the music, she is from Norway. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Very international kind of project here. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like new school X-Men. We're just going all over the place.
Yeah. I'm getting that. All right. Cool. Well, then we're going to go ahead and bring out the other two that are here with us today, since this is such a group project here. Bear with me. Here we go. All right. So first up, we have Holly Lyn, and I'm sorry, I didn't confirm how to pronounce this. I'm saying Walrath. Walrath? All right. And from what I understand, the editor of The Dryad's Crown. Please welcome Holly. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going well. We're going to do one of these because I got a thing figured out for a little later. All right. Hi, Holly. How are you? Please introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, where you're from, and what you're currently working on these days.
Yeah, I'm Holly Lyn Walrath, and I am a freelance editor. I also write, but I mostly write poetry. And I'm from Houston, Texas, and I've been freelance editing for, like almost 9 years now. So a long time, and I work with, self-published authors, but also some traditionally published authors as well, and primarily in the science fiction, fantasy, horror genres. So that's me.
There we are. Very nice. That's the genre that I write in, so I'm probably going to hit you up next time and see what we can get going on my book too. All right. And last but certainly not least, we have Lindsey Dorcus. I hope I'm saying that right. Who is the narrator for the audiobook of The Dryad's Crown. Welcome, Lindsey. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. And yes, Dorcas is correct.
Okay, good. I didn't want to butcher that. It definitely sounds like one of those names that little kids probably had a field day with when you were in school.
Oh my God, tell me about it. Yeah. Middle school was rough, but
yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, kids are cruel. Go ahead, introduce yourself to the audience at home, who you are, where you're from, and what you're working on.
Sure. Hey, all. I'm Lindsey Dorcus. I'm the audiobook narrator for Dryad's Crown, and I'm in Chicago. And I actually just finished narrating the my initial pass at the narration for Dryad's Crown. Right now, it's with my proof listener and editor, and it'll be coming back to me soon to fix the mistakes I inevitably made, so that it can go back out in the world. So I'm finishing that up, and I'm also working on a murder mystery series right now for Caroline Topjian, the Maeve Michael series. The first one's called The Hitman's Daughter.
Very cool. All right, murder mystery, another winner for me. I'm in again. Okay.
And this is the first time that I got an update on the audiobook. I've been trying to leave Lindsey alone, like resisting the urge every day to be like, "Hey, Lindsey, how's it going? Hey, Lindsey,
Yeah.
how's it?" So she told me she was finished. I was like, "Yes."
Oh yeah, I'm done. I'm done with the big part. The big chunky part is in the past, and now we're just waiting for the pickups.
Great.
Very, very nice. Well, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the idea for this bad boy, where it came from. David, where did this story begin for you? Where did it come from?
Why? Every writer knows they're going to get this question, and every
And we're
writer
never
is like
prepared.
stumped every time. Like, I don't know. I was even thinking about it this morning. I was like, Adrian's going to ask this question. No, part of it was this idea of what would it be like if you were married to someone who had this whole other life, and what happens when that kind of past catches up with them. And so at the beginning, her husband Callus was a little bit more central to the story, but as I was outlining it, it became more Silbury's story as her life and kind of the consequences of keeping that life secret kind of played themselves out. But yeah, the first part of it was really thinking about, wouldn't it be interesting if you find out that your wife is actually this trained killer who had this whole adventuring lifestyle that you were just completely oblivious to? And then, of course, like so many outlines, the story grew in the telling.
That's such an interesting concept too, like the idea of like this past that she's like left behind and is maybe even hiding from, right? Like a whole new identity, a whole new life, and what happens. It reminds me of A Time to Kill, not A Time to Kill. What's the name of that?
John Wick.
No. It was they made it into a movie with Viggo Mortensen.
A History of Violence.
Thank you. A History of Violence. Wow, good pull. Yes, it reminds me a little bit of that, but where he has this whole like past that he has left behind, and then it comes back to catch up to him. That's
yeah. And then one of the other big inspirations was I read an article, and it was a fairly popular article, about 2 years ago or so, that talked about the strong female character and some of the problematic stereotypical aspects of the strong female character. And so I know that Holly and I have had discussions about this, but I just wanted to make sure that she doesn't solve all her problems just by hitting the bad guy with a stick. And that in the end, violence actually creates more problems for her, and that the solution becomes more complicated than just we beat the big bad guy at the final level.
good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, outwit him. All right. Well, I think that we're going to go ahead and give away the first of our three. So for folks in the chat, if you have not done so already, spam it with this hashtag, because I am going to do a drawing right here. All righty. Let's start collecting comments. Let's see. Once the entries get up to a couple, I'll spin the wheel. We're waiting on entries. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and ask a little bit about the writing journey of this bad boy. So you said it took you 2 years to write it. Did you have any idea when you started how long it would take? Did you organize that out? Did you plan that out? Did you have release date in mind? What was the journey of like the actual writing and moving towards publication for you?
Yeah, I think part of it was I knew that I was writing epic fantasy, and epic fantasy readers like big, thick stories. So I knew that I couldn't just knock out another 100-page novella. I needed to do something that had a little bit more meat on the bones, so to speak. So I'd never written anything this large before. So one of my real challenges is how can I break it down in a way that makes it more digestible? And so one of the interesting things about it, and I'm going to drag Holly into this one, is, every chunk would go to Holly. So instead of, as a developmental editor, instead of getting the whole book all at once, you were getting it kind of piecemeal throughout with just the assurance that it was going to go somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't normally operate that way, but because they were kind of being pitched as like little novellas to start with, I was like, all right, we'll make this happen, because like it is sometimes easier to like edit if you can see the larger picture. But in the case of your sort of episodes that you were doing, they were really very realized, and it wasn't as much of like an issue, and so, yeah, it was like very enjoyable to receive each little like mini adventure and get to like see how it changed and see the process. And I don't often get to work that way with an author, and it was really enjoyable. Yeah.
Well, and I think one thing that helped was when it was time to kind of turn it into one book, there was some rewriting that had to take place to make it feel more cohesive as a single volume. And you were actually able to give me notes at the very end of the process as well, which was tremendously useful.
Yes, I think you were like a little bit like, I don't know, like, do I want these notes? And I was like, no, let me tell you, because yeah, like it is challenging to like do that little switcheroo, but I think you had the vision from the beginning, and you had a very clear idea of where you were going, and that makes a huge difference. Is like you had already most of it in your head, and in a way that I could tell you knew where you were going. So yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is because it's a epic fantasy series, sometimes it's too easy to just say, well, I'll resolve that in a future book. That's a book 2 problem. And I think you were pretty good about bringing up things that had not yet been resolved to make sure that book 1 stands alone as a complete reading experience, even though there will be more books in the series.
Yeah, definitely tricky. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean that I think it, I'm really excited to see what the second book is like. But, in terms of the first book, like, it wasn't a huge amount of like having to tie things up, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that challenging myself. I'm writing a series and, just put out the first book. And it's one of those things where it's like, how much do you leave hanging? Because you do need some threads to go into the next ones, but you also don't want the audience to feel cheated out of any payoffs. You know what I mean? Like if it's something that you kind of set up to pay off in that first book, you should do so. You know what I mean? So yeah, very, very tricky stuff. I can't wait to read this thing. I'm getting really excited.
Or listen to it, which is also a type of reading.
That's also a type of reading. Yeah. Not everybody agrees, but it's true.
Oh, it is.
All right. This better not pick me. Okay, good. All right. Awesome. All right, Felicia, send an email to booksbyadrian@gmail.com. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. I did not think to do that ahead of time. booksbyadrian@gmail.com. And I will pass your information along to Mr. Hopkins here, and he will make sure that you get your ebook, which is what we gave away. This first one is the ebook. So Felicia, congratulations very much. Send your email information and all that good stuff there. Awesome. Okay, so staying on the writing journey, you released it in pieces to your newsletter, is that right?
I mean, I told my newsletter about it. No, I released it on Amazon as an ebook. It was an ebook novella. And do I wish I had done it differently? Kind of, because now I'm trying to get everyone to forget about that and focus on the actual Paperback, because I went through and when I say rewrite, that's a little dramatic. I went through everything though and tightened it up and reworked scenes and moved things around to make it more cohesive. But originally it was a series of ebook novellas.
Very cool. I never know how to describe how I have consumed a book if I've listened to it. Did you read it? Was it read to you? You know, there's a whole like story time kind of feel to that. I don't know.
Well, we have an expert here. Lindsay, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I struggle with that too, because I mean, I think you can absolutely say I read that book and not have to qualify it, because you did. You consumed the entire book unabridged. But it is true, because sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I read that. I mean, I listened to the audiobook, but you know, I read it and you did, you know, it's just a different medium.
Yeah. I mean, just because you didn't use your eyeballs from word to word to word doesn't mean you didn't like actually ingest all of those words. Like they're still in there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They got it in there. Yeah. Osmosis.
Yeah, but it's weird. We don't have the language for stuff like this, really.
I feel like we need to come up with the language for stuff like this. The people forget that all words are made up. We can just make up a new one. The editing process. How long did it take? How many edits did you guys go through? What was that all like?
I mean, as the developmental editor, Holly was there sort of early on in the process. I had my wife as a sort of alpha reader, a first reader, and that was really the first step in the editing. She is not a fantasy reader by nature, so it was interesting. You know, she would read a part of it and we would have coffee and breakfast and we would just talk about the book. And it was great getting her perspective because she's coming to it without having all the tropes and the preconceived notions of what it's supposed to be. And so I was very mindful of kind of the things that she was interested in, the things that she was, you know, having issues with. I would rework it a little bit. And then when I felt like it was in a reasonable state, I would hand it off to Holly. After Holly gave me notes back and we talked about it, worked through it, it then would go to a copy editor. And then after I reworked all of it, it went to a second copy editor who looked at the book as a whole. But yeah, I don't know. Holly, what was the developmental editing process like for you? You would get the book from me, and I guess...
Yeah, I mean, usually how I work is I will read through the book once, just like as a reader, you know, and kind of like think about my reader reactions. And because I think those are kind of the most useful to authors, is like, what does a potential reader feel about this? And especially if it's like a self-published book or like a book that's not, you're not worried about like an agent necessarily, so you're not having to think about like a larger market, you know, where you're really focuses on like the person who's going to read the book is going to be the person who matters the most. And so that's the first sort of pass I do, is I just read the book and think about like, how would a reader react to this? And then in the second pass, I go through and I add all of my comments and I make, you know, an editorial letter, which because sometimes is like a couple pages, sometimes much longer. It just depends on, you know, all of my thoughts that I have. And I usually try to organize that by, you know, different writing things. So like the characters or the plot. And sometimes there were like, you know, sections where I was like, the characters are fine here. Like, there's nothing that I feel like needs doing here. And sometimes it was like, oh no, this character needs focus. So that's how I operate. And then I think we did one more, like sort of at the end, where I just was solely focused on, let's look at the bigger picture, make sure all the plots line up, make sure everything feels satisfying, etc.
Yeah, I think one of the things I really appreciated about Holly was, if you were to give me something to edit, whether it's my work or someone else's, my instinct is line editing. I want to go in and just do line edits. And Holly did not get lost. She didn't get lost in the weeds of like this particular line or this sentence, or even some of the typos that were scattered throughout. She knew that we would catch those later. And so it was so helpful to get that much larger picture of, hey, this character really works, or even better, challenging me. Holly probably gets tired of me saying this, but in book 3, I was shying away from a lot of the violence that was in there. I was kind of panning the camera away so that we wouldn't see it. And Holly was the one to remind me of like, hey, I want to see what happened here. I want the consequences. I really want that. And so she was the one pushing me to be honest with the scene in a way that I wasn't. And so having an editor that can kind of challenge you, I think is really useful. But then also having an editor that isn't just there to beat you up, I think is also helpful.
Yeah, we're not beating with sticks here, as we have stated. Yeah, no, and like line edits, like in this case, I was doing a developmental edit specifically, so I wasn't doing line edits. I will sometimes do some line edits, like as here's an illustration of what I'm talking about, and like kind of just to show you, and I won't do it through like the whole chapter, for example. I'll just do it like on one page, and then you get an idea of like where things should go. Yeah.
Very cool. Question from the chat: does the person that raised her know what she is? That's a story spoiler. You can't be asking story spoilers. Don't answer that, David. Go read the book.
I would say this: whether she knows or doesn't know, think of this person as sort of the wicked mother archetype that you see in fairy tales, and so her presence is there throughout the book, even when she's not there. I actually, for a while there, I thought about that if I was to write the story from Dahlia Tulane, who is the wicked mother, if I was to write the novel from her point of view, it would be a horrifying, but also a very fascinating, different take, because she would see her job as I'm protecting her from the world by toughening her up and making her more capable, because I was a victim, and now I'm going to make sure that she's not. And so, it became really fascinating. So whether she knows or doesn't know, Dahlia Tulane is an absolutely vital character.
Awesome. And she said, okay.
That's fine.
All right on. Cool. The cover. Talk to me about this cover. Talk to me about you already told me previously in private about what this cover actually is. Go ahead and tell the folks at home what's going on with this cover. The image that we're seeing in the background here.
Yeah, I might have gone a little too far with this one. I reached out to a man, a Canadian paper sculptor named Calvin Nichols, that's what he does. He carves paper. He takes reams of paper and an X-Acto knife, and he just very carefully carves it. And if you go to his website, you will see some of the most beautiful carvings done of paper. So this is not a computer-generated image. This is actual paper that he carved into a floral crown, which he then took a picture of. He sent it to me. And we had Raina Violet, who is a cover designer from Austin, Texas, I believe. And Raina did the text and kind of the design treatment of the book as a whole. But it is absolutely stunning to see this work, particularly when you zoom in and get to see it. It's the only thing I worry about is just people may not know. I'm like, no, this is a sculpture. This is a hand carved piece of art here that we're looking at, and that is just absolutely blows my mind. And that's the great thing about working on this novel, whether it's Daniel's illustrations or Lindsey's narration or Calvin's art or even Cecil's book-a-horn. There's so many talented people that are contributing to this work.
I'm immediately worried about what you're going to do for book 2, because
we're going to scale back the cover.
How do you top this?
you don't. We're going to simplify.
As complex as the item that he created is, it is such a beautifully simple idea for a cover.
Yeah.
It's minimalist, so to speak. It's very, very just classy and nice and sets a tone. And just creates questions in my head. You know what I mean? Everything from like, what is the crown? What's the importance of it? Like, who's it going to? All that stuff is just like, I want to read it. Awesome, awesome stuff. Publishing the thing. Self-published, traditional published. What's the deal here? How's it going out?
I mean, there's a long story and a short story. The long story involves me in a puddle of tears, realizing that I'm going to have to do this indie thing, or I'm going to absolutely stress myself out. I love traditional publishing. I mean, there's so many book publishers that I like out there, but in the end, I knew that I needed the pacing, the independence, the freedom to kind of do this the way that I needed to do it. So I self-published this. And this is another reason why the book took so long, is when I started writing this book, I knew very little about self-publishing. And so I had to educate myself on all the ins and outs of how you work with a company like Ingram Spark. How do you work with Amazon KDP? How do you work with editors and copy editors? And how do you get the book layout? And so a lot of things that a traditional publisher would handle, I was saying, okay, I'm going to take care of it myself. And I wouldn't do it differently, in part because when you work with a traditional publisher, they will promote the book for maybe a month, maybe 2 or 3 months, and then they are done. They've moved on. As a independent publisher of my work, I can promote this for as long as I feel like it needs to be put out there. So to me, that's one of the great things. The other thing I really like about, not to ramble, but the other thing that I like about independent publishing is I think it is a much greater avenue for inclusivity in publishing. I look at traditional publishing and I see a lot of names that are kind of exceptions to the rule. But I'm not seeing the kind of diversity. You look at independent publishing and you see a much more diverse group of people in that field who are doing amazing work. And so for me, it was also partly, I want to be part of that group. I want to be part of the group that is doing their own thing and creating works like that.
Absolutely. And not only will traditional publishers only promote it for a month or two, that's if they promote it at all, because some will tell you, oh, we only do promotions for like our big authors, your Neil Gaimans and whatnot. And I'm like, they don't need your help. They've got their audience. These new guys need your help. And they're like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
And yet the Neil Gaimans pay for the other 90%,
Yeah.
So it's a tough model. It's rough, but no, I'm very happy that I did it, but yeah, just definitely decided to do it. And the other great thing about being an independent publisher is that I get to kind of pick the people that I want to work with. I get to, work with the cover and do all those things. And so that for me was a real joy for it.
Yeah. I'm like a broken record on this channel, so I repeat myself a lot. One of the things that I say all the time is that when you're a self-published author, you don't have one job, you have like 19 jobs, and you have to have your hands in all of these things. And on the one hand, it can be completely overwhelming and just so much going on. On the other hand, I don't want anybody else's mitts in my stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of work, but I want to do it. I want to make sure it gets done right. I want to make sure that it goes to the vision of the project, because so many people don't realize that a book in your hands is a work of art that an artist worked very hard to create. And I'm not just talking about the cover, all the words inside, down to the formatting. It's all presentation of that piece of art. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. I'm going to run this thing one more time for the paperback. So if you have not already used the hashtag, please do so now, because it's coming. Here we go. You guys ready? This is for the paperback. Andra. Who we got?
Hey, Amanda.
Amanda wins.
Good.
Amanda. And she's from your circles, right? One of your peoples? No? Okay, so
she's like my friend that I grew up with, and I'm like, I don't know who that. Sorry, Amanda.
Amanda, send an email to booksbyadrian@gmail.com with your shipping information, and I will make sure to get that to Mr. Hopkins here, and he will get you a copy of the Dryad's Crown on paperback, which is awesome. You get to hold it in your hands. It's good stuff. Okay, let's talk about the audiobook. So, I have not done an audiobook yet. I took a peek into the process and was like, yikes, expensive and a lot of work. And so later, I'll do this later. So it's one of those projects that I'm going to work up to. David, you are essentially launching this thing with an audiobook on its heels. It's coming. It's down the pipeline. Lindsey, you've been working on it. So if the two of you could talk a little bit about how you guys got together on this project and what is maybe unique about it, what you guys are doing, that's kind of for this book itself.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off and then I'll hand it off to Lindsey. I found Lindsey the old-fashioned way, which is I spent all day on Audible just clicking sample, and then I'd go sample, and then I just went through so many different samples, and I was looking for a woman's voice. I was looking for, and I don't even know, Lindsey, if you know what I was looking for, but I was looking for. Tell me if this is the right way to describe it. I was looking for a mature voice. Mm-hmm. I did not want there's a lot of YA narrators. I didn't want Silbury to sound like a teenager.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't think she does. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for that. And I kept coming back to Lindsey's narration. There was a few things I was looking for. In addition to that, I was looking for someone who had experience both with indie publishing and with traditional publishers, because I wanted to work with a professional, someone who knew the process better than I did, so that when we get to things that might be difficult, she can say, oh, yeah, I've had this problem before. We've worked through it, and this is what we did. So that was one of the things I was looking for. And then also, on your website, Lindsey, it was very important to me, your sort of advocacy, your very vocalness as being a member of the LGBT community. As you know, because you've read the book, Silbury is bisexual. And it's not to say that someone who is straight can't read the part of Silbury, but it's also important that I have someone who has perspective to say, you wrote this, it doesn't really ring true. Having people who have different perspectives than mine are absolutely vital. So, Lindsey, let's jump right into the hard questions. What was it like reading for a character that was not a just typical straight cisgendered character?
Oh, I mean, it was great. It was such a joy to work on this book. And I love one of the cool things you can do with queer characters in fantasy is you can create queer normative worlds, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're setting something in in the contemporary US or you have to contend with the realities of the world we live in and the homophobia and things like that. So it's really, I love it when fantasy authors take the opportunity to be like, listen, there are things that are bad in this fantasy world. Obviously, there is struggle and conflict and difficulty. But being a queer person is not one of them. The people in this book are just it's oh, some people have, some women have wives and some women have other spouses and some women have husbands. And nobody's mad about that. They're mad about other things. There's other problems going on, but that's not it. So that's always I love that in fantasy. It's really refreshing when authors take that opportunity and click into that. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My neighbor upstairs is pounding around. So if you hear him, I apologize.
That sounded like it was in your room right now. That's
this is fellow upstairs.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I worked with a sensitivity editor before I even started writing the book, just while I was creating the setting. And one of the things, her name was Alea Swan. She's a professor here in North Texas area. And she talked about with me, we had conversations about this idea of a queer normative fantasy world, where we do not have to recreate the trauma of this world in order to have an interesting story in your world. And that was something that really stuck with me, is we don't have to play out trauma as a form of entertainment. We can have these characters live their wonderful lives without it being an issue. And what we do is kind of create a different way of thinking about the world in that process.
Beautiful. And I'm so glad that you started this whole thing talking about how the voice had to be right for the character and everything. Because, like, I'm a huge fan of the A Song of Ice and Fire books, but I cannot listen to those audiobooks because we have 5-year-old children characters, we have female characters, we have male characters, and the audiobook narrator is like a 75-year-old man who has the voice of a 75-year-old man, and he cannot do the voice of a 5-year-old boy or an 8-year-old girl. And you're just like, it takes you out of the story so hard. You know what I mean? Like, just this whole, like, and then Sansa said, like, no, she didn't say it like that. Sound anything like Sansa. So yeah, it's I'm glad that you were able to find somebody that can really, like, embody the voice. It's very important.
Yeah, Lindsay, did you want to speak to that? Because I think the idea of having sort of a multicast versus just a single author, I like having a single author, but I also, my primary point of view characters are women, so it's not as much of a big deal. But I don't know, what do you think about that?
No, I mean, I think multicast can be really fun in, like, in certain books and certain genres and things. It can work really well, especially in, like, audio drama. That's really effective. But I feel like when you have a book with so much, like, narrative text, as a listener too, I prefer having one audiobook narrator who can sort of really effectively embody that main character, and then also can, reasonably effectively embody all the other characters that you encounter, with the knowledge as a listener, like, yeah, I know this is one person doing all these voices. So, like, I like to think that I do pretty well with switching between different genders and different sort of characters and attitudes, but it's all still me. Like, I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, did a 50-year-old man just walk into the room? Like, it's not that, but, but I like having that one voice to tell the story. And one thing about David's characters that made this process so easy for me is that everyone is so distinct, and people talk, people's points of view are very clear. And, you talked about Dolly Tulane, like, even the most villainous characters, we sort of get this well-rounded view of them, and their syntax is so distinct. So when I was voicing all these different characters, I didn't have to put that much work into, like, ooh, how do I sound? Like, what's their voice? How do I sound like this? It was so obvious. I was like, oh, that's how Bren Caius talks. Like, that's how Cret Bonebreaker talks. Like, this is how these characters talk, because, like, there's no other way for them to talk. Like, just the way that they're written is so clear.
Yeah, in other words, the voice is in the actual dialogue. It's on the page. The voice is already there. You're just reading it.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask kind of a self-indulgent question here, but Lindsay, did you have a favorite character to read?
I did. Listen, Bren Caius was my favorite to voice because she's one of my favorite types of characters to embody, where, like, she is so powerful, and that power allows her to be playful. Like, that confidence makes her playful. Like, some people who are powerful are, like, very rigid and tense, but, like, some people, when they get a certain amount of power, are just like, yeah, I can do no wrong. Like, yeah, no, mess with me. I don't care. Like, nothing can touch me. Like, that kind of energy is, like, so fun to play. She has a little bit of what I joke is, like, I think of as, like, my cool girl voice, where, like, it's me, but then, like, because my real self is, like, a little earnest and a little, but, like, characters like that, like, they get a little bit of a growl. She comes a little bit more out of the side of my mouth. She leans back a little bit. Like, she's got a little bit of this gravel to her voice. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't hold a court with children. Like, what are you talking about? She's got, like, this like, confidence that is so fun to just, like, sink into and play, because I don't always feel that way in my real life. So it's fun to get that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm in book 2. Bren Caius is the main character in that story, and it focuses on the War of the Hounds. It's heavily influenced by Henry V. And so writing Bren Caius has been hilarious because this is a younger version of her that has absolutely no filter. She is in charge, and she has to make the decisions, and the people around her have to kind of run around and figure out how they can actually execute on the things that she wants to do. Holly, out of curiosity, you've had to read my stuff as well. Any favorite characters?
Oh, I was just laughing the whole time because Bren is also my like favorite. So I mean, they love the main characters, but Bren is like my favorite like sub character, right?
Yeah.
Like, and she's just awesome. And I think that was like the main, you know, one of her main scenes was the one that I was like, you need to give me more of this character on the page because I'm obsessed. And if I don't get to see this like main scene, I'm gonna like not be happy. Because she's so great. She is like, she's very, you know, she is that like strong female character stereotype that is sort of the offset to Silbury, you know, like, and we love that about her, but she's also like deeply flawed, which you don't often get. And in that like strong female character. And so like that, I think that's why she's so appealing, but yeah.
I thought you were going to say Tom the Barber. You absolutely fell in love with him.
I do love Tom. I do love Tom the Barber.
Yeah.
And also just like, this is one of the things I love about fantasy, and that you also did so wonderfully well, David, is that there's all of these like larger than life, you know, like just like creatures that have been alive for eons, and creatures that like extend into the ends of the universe, and like gods and primordials and that sort of thing. And so like those are also so fun to voice because you get to tap into like this real like, and again you get to play a little bit more because you're like, oh, like they all have elements of humanity to them. They all are complicated characters, but like you're like, oh, this is like a mythical being. Amazing. Can't wait.
Now, my question is to you, David. Was their favorite character to read your favorite character to write?
I had a lot of fun with Tom and with Bren, both of them. But my favorite character is one of the main characters, which was Gideon. And part of the reason why was Gideon had such a small part in the first book, but she was one of those characters, and I know it happens with authors, where she kind of forced herself into the narrative. She was like, you know, elbowing her way in, saying, "This is my story now."
I got one of those.
I don't want to spoil anything, but in a way, she really does take over the story because Gideon, as the daughter of Silbury, she was just a fun character to write. In part because she is that sort of trickster archetype. She is playful. She is wise. She is in almost every story. She's kind of in over her head, and that was something that was a lot of fun. And then, of course, I don't want to spoil anything, but we do get to see a different point of view on the character, and that was also a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can relate to that so hard because real quick, this show is not about me, but real quickly, in my
it does have your name on it, so
that is a good point. My logo is like right there. In my first book, in my first novel, in the introductory chapter of one of my main characters, the second chapter, we're introducing Lear. And he's a bounty hunter, and he's going about his day. He's turning in a bounty and, getting paid and all this kind of stuff. And it's all just, making the donuts type stuff for him. It's just a day at work. And so I needed a character for him to bounce off of a little bit, for him to talk to a little bit, to look comfortable, let his guard down. So while he's waiting to be seen by the boss, I put him at the bar, and I just made the bartender his sister. Because I figure, okay, they know each other, they can be familiar with each other, etc. And later on, I'm sending the chapters to beta readers, alpha readers, actually, at that point. And my best friend reads that chapter, and I ask him who his favorite character is, and he says Harley, his sister. And I'm like, she's in like a scene and a half. She has like 3 lines. What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, but she served her brother a drink without asking if he wanted one. So she's my favorite character. And that one little thing sticking out to him and being so significant to him made the entire character like bloom in my head. And I was like, oh no. And before you knew it, she ended up with 3 point of view chapters plus the epilogue. And she's going to be a main character in the second book. And she's just running away with the story. It's bananas how that happens.
Although I will say, not to disagree, but sometimes a character can be likable because they are in the story for such a short period of time.
Yes.
They don't have an opportunity to wear on you yet.
That's a good point. It's a good point. Different types of people and creatures are part of the story without it being explained, and it was refreshing. So a little praise for that. All right. I could easily slip into the mind of each character, and that was a wonderful experience. Look at this. I may have missed this, but is there a Kickstarter? I don't believe we talked about Kickstarters.
No, I do have a Patreon, which helped with it helped with so many of the costs that were associated with producing the book.
Audiobooks.
Yeah, but a Kickstarter may happen if we decide to do a hardcover at some point. Right now, it's just available as a paperback and as an audiobook and an ebook, which is great. But yeah, if ever there is demand for a hardcover, we would probably kickstart it.
Themed bookmarks, page holders, coffee mugs, any merch?
Once again, my Patreon subscribers have access to the coffee mug. There's T-shirts. If you go to my website, thatdavidhopkins.com, there is a Dryad's Crown T-shirt. Themed bookmarks. My wife is a graphic designer, and I'm bugging her about bookmarks and also holographic stickers. That's the other thing that I was kind of wanting, but we haven't done that yet.
All right. Classy. I like it. I like it a lot. All right. For everybody in the chat, this is your last chance because we are going to start winding down in a minute here. So I'm going to do one last drawing. If you have not used it yet, now is the time. This is for the audiobook. I have a feeling we're going to have a repeat winner on this one because I haven't seen any new hashtags in there. So please, hashtag the Dryad's Crown, excuse me. And let's see about winning an audiobook. I'm going to do this here, and while I do that, let's talk about where to buy the Dryad's Crown. Why do I keep wanting to say dryers?
You know,
the Dryad's Crown.
It's funny, that is the title of the book, and I never use the word dryad again for the rest of the book. It's yeah. And sometimes people are like, Druid? I'm like, no, Druids and Dryads are completely different. It's a whole other thing.
Funny, she doesn't look Druish.
Yeah. So yeah, we as far as where to buy the book, if you go to dryadscrown.com, that will direct you to all the places. The ebook is exclusive to Amazon. The paperback is available wherever paperbacks are sold. I would also strongly encourage people to go to their libraries and ask them. Yep, go to your library, ask them nicely, and they'll probably get a copy for you. And then the audiobook is also going to be available widely. So you'll be able to get it on Audible, you can get it on Spotify, you'll be able to get it on Libro and all the other places where you can get audiobooks.
Sorry, guys. The boys want to say goodnight. Come here, give me a big old hug.
You know, it's what.
I love you.
I love you.
Good night, buddy.
Good night, Dad.
Okay, go.
Cute.
Get out of here. I'm doing a show. Very important stuff.
Yeah, it's fine.
Felix, go to bed. Sorry, guys. All right, let's go ahead and do this drawing here real quick. Later. I'll tell you later, buddy. All right. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Who's winning?
Good job.
Oh, we got a repeat winner. We got a repeat winner. Yeah, a little too soon on that one.
It was slowing down on me. It threw me off.
Yeah. It slows down a little bit. Okay, so Very, very cool. We have Felicia here. Felicia, you're saying good night, but you don't even realize you just won an audiobook. So congratulations to you. And we have folks in the chat who have read the book already. So if you want it and you want to re-gift it, whatever you're gonna do, no problem. Just go ahead and go through the motions of getting it, because that way we can get into the hands of even more people. So awesome. Guys, was there anything about the Dryad's Crown that you guys wanted to cover today that I didn't ask or I didn't think about? Anything that you guys want to make sure the information gets out there to folks?
Oh, we start. Holly, anything come to mind?
No, I mean, it's just, I think one of my favorite things about this series is how you subvert the expectations of the genre, right? So, like, I think there's a lot of fantasy that's very, like, intense, basically like explosions, but in a fantasy world, like an action movie almost. And I think that one of the things I love about your book is how softly it approaches the characters, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all. It's definitely a positive. And so if you need a kind of cozier fantasy read that you don't necessarily feel like you don't have to worry as much about, like we were talking about, the kind of real world problems. These are fantasy world problems, and I love that about it. And so yeah, it's every part of it is just like right when you expect something's going to happen, it goes a completely different direction. So that's my favorite part of it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's definitely not. It's definitely not the Michael Bay of fantasy novels, and I say that with in a positive light.
Yes.
Yeah, because it does this beautiful job of mixing the mundane with the like epic and like the huge and the unfathomable, which is something that feels very true to life. I feel like we're doing that every day. We're like confronting both the mundane and the unfathomable in like the same breath. So in that way, like it feels very very relatable and very relevant, and like and it's a journey. Like you're gonna go on a whole journey. It's not it isn't the like quick pick it up and like read through it in a day sort of like escapist stuff, which I love just as much, but like this is like, ooh, you're gonna sit down with your pot of tea and you're really gonna like take a long walk, and it's gonna be really satisfying. So highly recommended for that.
A nice long walk through the woods by a babbling brook, being followed by a trail of deer and rabbits.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, with along with like they've said, like plenty of violence and danger and like other things. It's not just like a scenic walk, but like as a reader, and I mean, and believe me, I was like crying and sweating and howling in the booth, because like there are these moments that are just so big. But like as a reader and as a listener, I think it will feel like that really like long walk in the best way possible.
Lindsey, you just brought up the booth. I want to talk to you very quickly about that. What is your setup like? Do you do it at home? Do you have a studio somewhere? What's your situation?
Yeah. I have a booth in my apartment here, which I'm not recording from because like the video setup is a nightmare and I didn't want to deal with it. But I have it's called a Studio Bricks booth. You can look them up. If you just Google Studio Bricks, they will come up. They're a company in Spain that make these giant prefab booths. And yeah, I get in there every day and record for hours and hours. And because of how sound works, it's not very well ventilated. So the summer is like, can be a little bit brutal. It gets very hot in there. I have like ice packs on my neck and I'm like taking breaks to breathe and waiting for this guy to calm down whenever he's having a little stompy time. So there's stuff that's like tough about it, but I'm really grateful that I have my own booth that I can go into and like tell stories in all day.
Very nice.
And Holly, Lindsey, thank you guys so much for hopping on this live stream. I think when Adrian and I were first talking about doing this live stream, it was very important to me to ask and see if you two would be willing to join us, because I think it's so important for people to realize that whether you're talking about traditional publishing or indie publishing, yes, the author's name is on the cover, but they are not the only ones who help bring it to life. There's a whole team of people that make these things possible. And it would be misleading to think that the author is just sort of doing all of it. It's a whole team effort. And so it was good to have you guys on here to kind of check me and talk about your experiences with it as well.
Of course. It's a lot of fun to get to do this because we don't get to do this very often. So yeah, I like it.
Very nice. This is awesome. It's awesome. You got a great team here. Team here. Awesome. Well, guys, this has been an absolute blast. I'm so excited that the book is out. I'm going to go get my copy right now, literally right now. And I can't wait to read it. David, congratulations. This is amazing and outstanding, and I'm so incredibly happy for you, especially knowing your background with Shakespeare and everything, and just the idea of reading an epic fantasy from you is just delicious. It's very nice. All right, for everybody who participated in the chat, thank you very much for coming out. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for participating in the giveaways. And again, if you have already read it or if you already have a copy and you won, please don't hesitate to forward that good fortune onto somebody else, because the more people read the book, the better. That's the idea. Get eyeballs on those pages. Folks, thank you all so much. I'm going to give you guys a little outro one by one here, a little opportunity to say goodbye to the people at home. And if you have anything to promote or anything coming up, another project coming out or some other appearance anywhere, anything like that, now's the time to let the folks know. Lindsay, we'll start with you and we'll go in reverse order.
All right. Thank you so much for having me. This was such a joy. If you want to find more stuff I've narrated, you can go to my website, lindsaydorcus.com, or you can put my name into any audiobook supplier, your library, Libro, Audible, any of those, and find other books I've narrated. And absolutely listen to The Dryad's Crown when it comes out in audio, hopefully very soon.
Beautiful. Holly, how about yourself?
Oh man, it was so awesome. Thank you for having me. You guys can find my website at hlwalrath.com, and I'm currently open to editing projects. So if you have a book or anything that you would like me to edit, of course, please hit me up, because I love working with all kinds of authors. My favorite are new authors, but I'm really into anything in the speculative genres. So check me out.
Beautiful. David, please say goodbye to the folks at home.
Yeah. If you want to know more about me and my work, you can go to thatdavidhopkins.com, thatdavidhopkins.com. You may want to sign up for the newsletter, because that is where you will get updates on future books that take place in the setting of the Dryad's Crown. So for instance, War of the Hounds, which I am working on right now. When it is available, the people on my newsletter will know about it first. The other thing is, if you go to my website, there's a whole list of other things related to the Dryad's Crown. I actually have a book club PDF that includes recipes of food from the book. So if you want to recreate some of the food, you can go there. There's maps are in the bigger size. We've got, there's setting guides and merchandise and so much stuff. It's a fun little corner of my page.
Yeah, I saw that today. You've got pronunciation guides and all kinds of good stuff up there. So definitely check that out, folks, if you want to delve a little deeper into the Dryad's Crown. I didn't know about the recipes. I'm going to be looking into that. That sounds good. Foodie here, if you didn't notice by the cheeks. All right, y'all, my turn. After you finish buying the Dryad's Crown and reading it, get one of these. MYTHIC, Shadow of the Spark is my novel. It's a murder mystery. It's set in a sci-fi fantasy world. It's got LGBTQ characters in lead roles. It's got a bounty hunter. It's got a detective. It's got a witch who may be more than a witch. Maybe she doesn't know that she's more than a witch. Let's find out what she's all about. And book 2 is currently being written. So go to booksbyadrian.com. Links are all in the description down below. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you very, very much once again for being with me. Thank you so much. Everybody at home, anybody watching this on the replay, leave your comments down below with any questions that you have for Mr. David Hopkins or anyone on his team, and we'll make sure that those questions get answered. And thanks again. Right on, writers. We're out.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye.